Excellencies, Head of State, Honorable Ministers, Heads of Delegation, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Master of Ceremony, for the introduction. Standing in front of you is the Minister responsible for environment, climate change, disaster management, meteorology, and everything else for our beautiful country, Solomon Islands. It is an honor to join you today at the second Berlin Climate Mobility Forum. I thank the Global Center for Climate Change, Climate Mobility, and the Robert Bosch Steve Tang for convening this important gathering. The Solomon Islands is proud to endorse the global principles for addressing climate mobility. These principles represent a historic step towards a coherent response to one of the defining challenges of our time. They provide a common framework and language for addressing climate change, climate mobility, and ensuring that vulnerable communities are not left to face these crises alone. However, principles must lead to action. We must now advance the climate mobility adaptation agenda as a practical roadmap that translates global commitments into meaningful support for communities on the front line. For the Solomon Islands, climate mobility is not a future possibility. It is already a reality. Across our islands, families are witnessing the sea reclaiming their lives in real time. Burial grounds are being washed away. Wells are turning brackish, and homes built over generations are collapsing into the tide. For us, the climate crisis is not a forecast. It is already reshaping our coastlines and in some places, taking our islands altogether. In recent decades, 5 of our reef islands have disappeared beneath the sea, while 6 others have been severely eroded. On Notambu, in one of our 9 provinces, families have watched 3/4 of their homes destroyed by the waves. In Walande, an entire community of approximately 800 people has relocated from their island home to mainland Malaysia. These are not statistics to us. They are our families, neighbors, and communities. Their experiences remind us why climate mobility must be addressed with urgency, dignity, and compassion. They have also taught us a fundamental lesson that protecting people in a warming world means protecting their right to choose, to stay where they can, and to move when they must, and to do either with dignity and agency. Excellencies, allow me to share 3 reflections aligned with the first 3 climate mobility principles. First, we must protect the right to stay. For most Solomon Islanders, the deepest wish is to remain on the land and reefs of their ancestors. Our first priority must therefore be to help communities remain safely in their homes for as long as possible. This requires investment in resilient infrastructure, coastal protection, freshwater security, climate-resilient food systems, and ecosystem restoration, including mangroves that protect our shorelines. It also requires stronger climate information services and early warning systems that enable communities to prepare and respond effectively. Staying in place is not only about physical safety. It is about preserving culture, identity, heritage, and dignity. Second, when people must move, they must be able to move with dignity. We recognize that in some circumstances, mobility will become unavoidable. When relocation is necessary, it must be planned, voluntary, and community-led. Too often, movement occurs as an emergency response, leaving communities vulnerable and disorientated. Relocation should instead strengthen resilience. Families must have access to livelihoods, services, and opportunities while maintaining their cultural identity and social cohesion. The Solomon Islands has sought to lead by example. In 2022, we developed and adopted the National Planned Relocation Guidelines to support communities facing climate change impacts and to ensure that relocation protects livelihoods, culture, and dignity. We have also recently signed a memorandum of understanding with the Global Center for Climate Mobility to undertake a climate mobility deep dive, helping us better understand, anticipate, and plan for future mobility across our islands. We encourage our partners to support the implementation of these efforts to recognize planned rights-based relocation as an essential adaptation measure. Third, we must ensure that no one is excluded. Some of our most vulnerable citizens lack the means to move, even as climate risks intensify around them. The poorest households, older persons, and those without sufficient resources may remain in increasingly hazardous areas, not because they choose to, but because they have no alternatives. For these communities, adaptation finance, social protection, and accessible support are essential. No one should be left behind simply because they lack the resources to relocate or adapt. Enabling agency means ensuring that all people have meaningful choices and the support needed to act on them. Excellencies, beyond the human dimension, sea level rise also threatens our sovereignty and maritime zones. It raises profound questions regarding the continuity of statehood, maritime boundaries, and the right of our people. International cooperation will be essential to provide a legal certainty, protect maritime entitlements, and safeguard the rights of affected communities. For small island developing states such as the Solomon Islands, this is not only about adaptation. It is about protecting our nationhood and our future. Finally, adaptation finance must reach the local level. Communities on the front line are already taking action by building seawalls, restoring ecosystems, and adapting their livelihoods. Yet, their efforts remain constrained by limited resources. They need direct access to finance, climate information, technology, and technical support to scale their initiatives. Empowering local communities is the most effective way to ensure that climate mobility responses are practical, inclusive, and sustainable. The Solomon Islands stands ready to work with partners to advance these principles and translate them into action. Together, let us ensure that climate mobility responses uphold dignity, human rights, cultural identity, and resilience so that our people and generations to come can live with security and pride in the face of a changing climate. I thank you for your attention. Tagia Tomas.